Okay, this is Moshe coming to you from Israel and Galilee on April 4th, and we're at about almost 8:30 in the morning here in Israel. Holy Land time, as we like to say, although things aren't so holy here. We're at 57 degrees, high is 72, lots of sunshine today. Tomorrow, very sad to say, we're getting rain on Sunday again. So much, it's hard with all the bombing and the missiles and the drones and the takedowns and the shrapnel, and now we got the rain on top of it. It's very difficult, very difficult. And again on Tuesday, and now they're saying Wednesday. They keep changing it, and now they're saying and Friday. I hope the rain stops. It's just so you have no idea how hard it is to live here now. In the best of days, Israel is incredibly hard to live. You have no idea. You might know people that come over here as tourists, and that doesn't count. I don't care if you stay here 3 weeks or a month, it doesn't count. You talk to people in Israel that live here that are believers, and they'll tell you consistently that God deals with you differently when you're in Israel. It's usually better. Okay. You hear this a lot. Okay. The people that don't understand prophecy don't understand this. They don't know why it's happening. God says he accepts you in Israel more than once. That's where he accepts you. Okay. And I suppose we could bring those scriptures up. So I got started with it. Let's find some. Where in the KJV does it say God accepts the people in the land of Israel or Judah, Jerusalem? What verses? Let AI hunt it up. Ezekiel 20, verse 40 to 41. This is for the future, the second Exodus. For in my holy mountain there shall all the house of Israel serve me. There will I accept them. There will I require your offerings. I will accept you with your sweet Savior. See, it's a good thing. Ezekiel 43:27. It shall be that upon the 8th day the priest shall make your burnt offering, and I will accept you, saith the Lord God. Second Chronicles 7:16. For now have I chosen and sanctified this house, that my name may be there forever. It's of course in Israel. Psalm 132:13 and 14. For the Lord hath chosen Zion. Yes, not the denominational churches. This is my rest forever. Here will I dwell. Okay. He's not dwelling in these buildings from 11 o'clock to 1 o'clock on Sunday. That's not what's going on. Zechariah 2:10 to 12. I will dwell in the midst of thee, saith Jehovah, and Jehovah shall inherit Judah and shall choose Jerusalem again. Okay, so I gave you enough examples of that. There's more. And that's why I had to come here. When I've been here many, many years, but I'm telling you, it's so difficult now. It really is. It's incredible. And then you add the rain in. Oh my gosh, Is it that he's getting the last? He says he won't leave us altogether unpunished. He says he's for us. We're not going to get destroyed, but he won't leave us altogether unpunished. And maybe this is the wrapping up of the punishment. I'm not sure. I don't know. Okay, we're going to talk about the planes that got knocked down. There could have been more than 5. They're planes and helicopters, okay? It was an F-16 hit, an F-15, an A-10 Warthog, 2 helicopters. And there's something maybe happened to 2, I think the KC something refueling tankers, because they took off and went someplace and landed. They might have been partially hit. I don't know. If they were hit, we're not going to hear about it. But they were okay. We have 5 aircraft get hit. About 36 hours before the planes started getting hit, our friends, Russia, Vladimir Putin, transferred some weapons to the Iranians in the Caspian Sea. And it's possible, likely and possible, that Russia gave them some more advanced stuff, and they knocked down some planes with it. Now, the A-10, all the pilots are okay. The helicopter pilots are in a safe place. Rescue teams went in to get them, special forces, and there was on the ground gunfire between American special forces and Iranian schmuck military. Okay. The F-16 managed to land someplace. It got damaged. It wasn't taken down. The guy managed to land the plane. So the 2 helicopters are okay. They recovered the crews. Apparently, they had to go down. Helicopters don't generally fly when they've been hit. Sometimes, if the pilot's in a combat zone, what he'll try to do is fly out of the combat zone. Like if he can make it 15 or 20 miles, which doesn't take a long time for a helicopter, that will give him tremendous safety. Even if he gets 3 or 4 miles away, that gives him a great deal of safety. And they're okay. They got recovered. The problem is the F-15E pilot. He's recovered. They both ejected. The pilot's been recovered by the rescue people. The navigator, the F-15 is a 2-seat plane. The navigator controls the weapon systems, navigation, things like that, while the pilot flies the thing. Most of the planes now are single seat. And he we don't know what happened to him. Now, Iran is showing pictures of ejection seats, saying they recovered them in Iran. And experts are saying, no, those are not F-15 ejection seats. The eject handle is in the wrong place and everything. So they had some ejection seats from something. And they could have been their own planes. And they showed you those, and they're not from the F-15. Chances are something bad happened to the pilot, the navigator, that they can't find. Okay, now they could be separated because they probably didn't eject at the same moment. One probably waited a few seconds, and that could mean he could be, some distance away. We don't know. Ejection is dangerous. People get injured during ejection. We don't know what the what happened to this guy. Is it possible the Iranians captured him and are just having America chase their tail, looking for him, giving them a chance to shoot at American aircraft like they did with the 2 helicopters, damaging them? Oh, very high probability. Yeah. They're nasty. They could be doing it. They said they've put a large amount of soldiers in the area looking for the pilot, and they've put a reward out, which is millions of Iranian rials. I believe it's 54,000 US dollars. To civilians that capture this navigator and turn him over to Iran. Now, what the Iranians would likely do if they get this guy alive would be horrible. He would suffer initially very brutal interrogation with or without drugs. They would want to know everything he knew, where the planes are, where they take off, what kind of planes they have, what are their plans, what is this, what is that. What's the morale like? What blah, 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 blah. Maybe several days of interrogation. Then they would start using them for propaganda. Making them get on TV and apologize to the Iranian people for being so brutal to them and bombing kindergartens and old age homes and everything else they could dream of. And if they thought his propaganda value was worth continuing with, they would, but I doubt they would do that. They would execute him publicly on video, probably by cutting his throat with a dull knife. That would be to scare the other pilots. Okay? I don't know if they issue the pilots a pistol when they fly over Iran. In wartime and other areas, that would be common, like Vietnam, World War II. So if they went down, they would be able to fend off civilians. They could also use it to, if there were soldiers in the area, there was 2 or something like that, and they were searching for them, he could jump up and shoot them. If he was successful, then he'd have rifle. But today it's a completely different thing. They got comms. They know where he was when he went down. where he was when he ejected, and they go around and they're looking. Why didn't they find him? Well, if he was dead, they probably would have found him, or the Iranians would have and paraded the dead body. But nothing. So it's a possibility he landed safely in a lousy area. You know, could be soldiers, civilians, and he's hiding somewhere. I don't know what happened. The longer the time goes by that he's not recovered, the higher probability he's dead. So the two helicopters that got hit, I'm not sure what they got hit with. I know they were taking ground fire. I don't know if these helicopters were armored, but there are helicopters that are armored and they'll bounce the bullets off. They could have got hit with Katyushas or shoulder fired rockets, which is probably what happened. Helicopters are not so easy to take down with machine guns, unless the helicopter is very low, like 60 feet, and going slow or something like that. But if the helicopter's 500 or 1,000 feet and he's going 150 miles an hour, the chances of hitting him with rifle fire are quite low. Usually he'll be more like 3,000 feet up. And I mean, you'll be able to see it, but getting a shot is really a dismal thing. You wouldn't be likely to ever have that happen. So what? So what took him down was probably a Katyusha or a shoulder-fired missile, an anti-tank missile, or something like that. Um, if it was something more substantial, the helicopter would have broken up into many pieces on impact, and they would have been dead. What it seems like is they were able to make a soft landing, get out of the helicopter, wait for other helicopters to show up, recover them, and get them the heck out of there. That's what it seems to be. So Trump did hold a special meeting at the White House with his military after this, obviously. And they're probably analyzing what happened and what to do. So we'll get into all this. Let me check the live stream. And we're also going to go into in depth why the missile cities and these mobile missile launches are giving us so much trouble and what it's going to take to knock them out. And I'm going to get technical about that. And we've been taking a tremendous amount of missiles over our Passover holiday here in Israel, which is the rabbinical calendar, not my calendar, not the real calendar. And they have been not causing a lot of damage, not causing injuries, but making life rather painful and harsh here in Israel. they send these cluster warheads in and we take them down. What it sounds like in the sky is like popcorn popping in a microwave, Bop, 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 bop. And you got about 80 little warheads in a cluster missile, and if there's 80 little explosions, I mean, the dogs go nuts. The poor dogs hate it. I'm sure the bird doesn't like it. We don't like it. And it keeps happening. I'm sure we got I'm guessing over 100 missiles yesterday. The day before, we had about 170. Well, I don't think they're putting Trump in jail. I don't think they're going to do that. I'm not a great fan of Trump. Okay, I'm going to put a post up, which is probably going to take seconds. I don't see any prayer requests in the chat or questions. I see a lot of disturbed children who grew up in horrible homes, most likely, that are putting nasty comments up because that's what they do to get pleasure. Okay. Maybe the Lord's giving us rain so it keeps people indoors and they're safer. I don't know. The vast majority of injuries from these missile attacks is from people running to get into the shelter. The idea is to walk briskly. Running gets you into accidents where you slip and fall. And, if you fall and you hurt your hip, your knee, or your ankle, then you're going to have trouble getting up and you're going to be limping and it's going to be slow getting in the bomb shelter. Also, wrist injuries happen, elbows, I guess, shoulders. I think predominantly what you get is ankle, wrist, and knee injuries from running. I don't go into the shelter. The dogs want to get in the house when the missiles hit, and they hear the interceptors and all that. They don't like it. They know it's bad. They don't know what it is, but they know it's bad. The bird, I think, puts up with it because he knows its distance. He can tell it's not, But I think the dogs think that the cats are sending missiles at them or something. Okay, let's get into it. So when you look at what happened with the planes takedown, is that going to really change their approach to the war? No, no. They might have to go more to stealth. To stealth aircraft, excuse me, which are probably not going to get taken down. The A-10 Warthog is low-hanging fruit for the Iranians because it's a slow-moving plane. It goes about 450 miles an hour. So that's an easy thing to go after. So you don't want to deploy that in a theater where you got anti-aircraft threats of a serious nature. And now Americans realize they do, so they got to be very careful. Quick prayer request for AZ, Alpha Zebra. AZ, Alpha Zebra prayer request. So we want to pray for complete deep healing. For AZ, complete deep healing, free of pain. We want to have a prayer request for that. Okay? Thank you. All right, you can agree with me. I'll pray. You can agree with me. My Heavenly Father, Jehovah, I pray for AZ for complete deep healing of all the growths that are bad in the system. I pray for healing for this person and relief from pain. B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach, and you can agree with that. Okay. This person's going through it, let me tell you. All right. Actually, it was 3 days ago, not 36 hours. It was 3 days ago before this attack, which was yesterday, that there was a weapons transfer to Iran in the Caspian Sea, and then the planes started coming down. So it's reasonably logical that these new weapons, which would have been defensive weapons, are what caused it. The F-16 that got hit managed to get back to its base. And there were 2 tanker planes that may have gotten hit. The A-10 Warthog pilot is fine. The helicopter pilots are fine. All the pilots are fine, except the navigator that's in the F-15. We have been attacking their electric generators in Iran after the aircraft got hit, and there was reported blackouts in Iran last night. So we are already hitting their infrastructure. Was this Israel? Would this be America, or both? Likely both. We're getting reports now in Israel, which are usually pretty darn accurate, that the Iranians are able to rebuild or repair these missile cities that we've been hitting in a matter of hours, and then start using them again. This is probably hitting the exits or the vents. We're going to get into a deep discourse about this. So yesterday or last night, Iranian cluster bombs hit cars and buildings. There was some fire in Tel Aviv and central Israel, and a factory in the Negev, which is in the south, was struck. Police are reporting 15 impacts in Tel Aviv. So it's 15 places where we had an impact, the missile landed. Now, it could be a warhead from these cluster bomb warheads. So it could have been actually one missile that got in, and the 15 warheads caused damage. I don't have the details on that one broken down any deeper than that. So it's Tel Aviv, Bnei Brak, Petah Tikva, Rosh Ha'ayin, and Givatim. One person was lightly wounded, the emergency services said. That's phenomenal track record of minimal wounds. A missile also struck southern Israel industrial zone. But it did get hit by an interceptor, but you had a shrapnel coming down, and that was earlier in the week, I think. So anyway, that's going on. Um, but it's just terrible. I mean, you get all these. It's just really a pain. It really is. Uh, the United States intel agencies are saying they're unable to determine how many launchers were destroyed in Iran because they've figured out Iran is deploying decoy launchers. Um, so they're attacking decoys, so they don't know what was a decoy and what wasn't. See, what the Iranians think they're doing here is they think they're in some way, shape, or form going to win the war, even though their country, you really need to understand that America did 13,000 strikes on Iran. Combined with Israel, we're at about 20,000 strikes. There's been a tremendous amount of damage to Iran. Massive. So, yes, special forces guys are inside Iran looking for the downed crews and helping save them. And they did have some gunfights with Iranian soldiers, uh, probably IRGC, if I recall correctly. So, yes, U.S. Special Forces are boots on the ground in Iran working. Uh, um, we're going to get into what the special forces are likely going to be deployed for. This was an unexpected incident because for 34 days of combat, there was no plane shot down, I think none. So this is something that wasn't planned on. So they just adapted to this. But we'll get into what the special forces are likely going to be doing, which involves the missiles. The Iranians said they were going to destroy a corporation target, and that was in Dubai. And I'm trying to get the name of this thing. Oracle, I think it's the name. And they attacked in Dubai, and the shrapnel, I believe Dubai, which is UAE, did some takedowns with anti-aircraft missiles, and the the shrapnel fell on the building of Oracle, which the Iranians said they were going to target, and they did, and they got building collapse. So they're trying to pull through on their promise, and they actually didn't get a good hit on the Oracle building, but the shrapnel got in. I don't think they got that much damage. So the Iranians were also searching for this missing navigator, by the way. Starting tomorrow, Sunday, Israel's going to expand the amount of people allowed on a passenger flight leaving the airport. We're going to allow 90 people at a time instead of 50. Shooting at the airport for the enemies is always something they like because you don't have to hit it to affect shipping. People just stay away based on it just being attacked. Now, this is in the stage of maybe it's true. Okay. I don't know if it was true, but I'll just cover it quickly. The 40 or 36 countries that had a virtual meeting that the UK put on, and they collectively, except for the Gulf states, which, wanted to prosecute a war against Iran, except for them, the other probably 30-something nations wanted a economic and a diplomatic solution. And we seem to get that there was some feedback from Iran, but about they didn't want to end the war. They wanted the Persian Gulf open so they could get oil. They're spending billions of dollars more on oil than they used to, and LNG, of course, and they're not happy about that. Of course not. And they're saying that the war is not, feasible, not realistic, terms like that. So what the heck's going on? Well, what the rumor, let's call it a rumor and unverified, says the Iranians got back to him and said they'll open up the Gulf, but these nations got to agree to buy the oil in euros or Chinese currency. I don't believe it. Because they're saying they're closing the Persian Gulf and they're not going to open it up for 30 or 40 nations. That would be heavy traffic. I don't believe it. It's very inconsistent with everything else. Plus, they wouldn't want the money going in the euro. They would probably insist the money for the gas be paid in real. And they also would have put a stiff tariff on it. So I think it's bogus. If you came across that article, I think it's bogus. Maybe they stipulated that a deal is possible, but one of the conditions they want is this, to hurt the American dollar. And, but I still don't think so. I think the guy with the A-10 plane that got hit didn't eject. He landed the thing. He just set it down on emergency landing. The rescuers probably would have put explosives in the plane with a time bomb or something, a time fuse, and after they extracted it, probably blew it up. Yeah, they offered to reward the Iranians of 10 billion choman, which is 64,000 US dollars, if you can capture the American navigator. I don't believe anybody captured him. I don't know what happened with this guy. At this point in time, my two most likely ideas would be he's dead or he's hiding someplace. But he should have comms to talk to them. Now, they might be able to pinpoint them if he does that, but he could go and, turn it on for 2 or 3 seconds and it wouldn't do much. I don't think they would get him that quick. Rest assured, the Pentagon is coming up with a plan to deal with the downed planes, and Trump's plan might be to get out of there. Trump goes into coward mode quickly. So this might start encouraging Trump to end the war. Trump says the downing of the planes, he says it will not affect the negotiations, not at all. It's war. So what Trump is saying is we're in a war and soldiers get killed and planes get knocked down and so forth. I'm not going to change my approach to things. So let's see. There's a big difference between planes going down and losing an aircraft carrier with 5,000 people, or even losing a destroyer with 300, big difference. So we're striking simultaneously in Lebanon and Iran. Pakistan was trying to get some sort of negotiations going with Iran and America, and the word is it's dead as a doornail. Not going anywhere. Qatar is resisting efforts to mediate. They don't want to do any mediation with Iran. They're really mad at them. And we're still getting another 2 weeks of war from Israel, and I'll get into how that could really happen later. The geniuses in Iran exploded 2 ballistic missiles immediately after they launched in Tehran. The first one detonated inside the military base, while the second one crashed into civilian homes, killing dozens of civilians. So Hegseth fired or removed from their current post 3 U.S. Army generals. We heard of one, but it actually was 3. And then Pam Bondi, the AG, got it. She got the boot. The problem with this, with Trump, is him running away. I don't know what he really wants to do with the other Arab states. I know he doesn't care about Israel very much. The other Arab states he cares about. Or maybe he's become treacherous and he wants them to not be able to produce oil and get Iran to not be able to produce oil, and that makes him a greater oil czar than he is now. I don't know. He'll never, vocalize that. He can't, he never will. The price of oil is continuing to go up, especially the West Texas oil, the American oil. It's going on the paper at 111 to 113 a barrel, and the Brent 109 to 111. But let's see what the real price for physical delivery is. What kind of prices are we seeing today for physical delivery of oil? We're getting $115 to $130 for physical delivery of oil. Yeah, it's not that crazy. Give it a chance. The gold and the silver is a little bit higher than yesterday. It's about where it is. It's not really. I could tell you exactly, but this is again paper, gold, and silver, not physical delivery. Okay. 46.76 on the gold and 72.90 on the silver. That's where it's at. That's pretty accurate right off of the Kitco website. Okay. So let's talk in detail about, the prophecy. The Lord said he'll break the bow of Elam, the strength of their might. That's Iran. The bow is a missile launcher. That's what's keeping them going. Okay, so let's get into it. A lot of these missile cities are built into mountains, and they're as much as 1,500 meters, not feet, under earth and rock from the mountain. They go to the bottom of the mountain and they build a tunnel inside the mountain, and it defies even the bunker buster bombs. Now, I don't know if you made 100,000-pound bunker buster bomb, would that work? I doubt it. This is Iran's defense and offense. They put everything into the barrel of mobile missile launchers and putting missiles and launchers inside fortified locations in missiles in the mountains and stuff like that. They have a lot of mountains in Iran. They were basically concocting a missile deterrence strategy or platform where they were going to put all these missiles in and deter anybody from messing with them, lest they fire missiles at them. Not 1,500 meters deep, 500 meters, sorry, which is, about 1,600 feet or something. Maybe more, 1,700, I don't know, something like that. And it's immune to the bunker busters. It's really a dastardly thing they built. This is the bad news. The intelligence is saying that these missile cities have independent power. They do not work off the grid, the standard civilian grid that put the lights on in people's apartments. No. They utilize underground industrial grade diesel generators, and they even use large scale battery arrays. They don't rely on the public grid for these things. So, what are we saying here? They got generators in there with batteries, and the generators might turn on for, I don't know, 5 hours and charge the batteries, which might keep them going for 2 or 3 days. So you're not always seeing an emission of smoke with a visual signature and a heat signature and a chemical signature because they're running the generator for X amount of hours a day to build the batteries up. And then the batteries are taking care of the electric needs and the, getting the fresh air into the system and all of that. So they're not running they're not running the generator 24/7. So it makes it somewhat harder to pick up where the generator is or where the vent from the generator is to start bombing the vent. Okay, this is like submarine. It's a battery operated boat, it's a submarine. So this is a battery operated missile city at times. But you need a generator to build the charge up for the batteries. Okay. They need lighting or they're going to kill themselves and blow missiles up, right? They need communication systems or they'll be disjointed. They need that. That's electricity. Ventilation, they need that. That's electricity. So we started taking down the grid, and we're going to discuss momentarily the benefits of taking down the grid and how that'll handicap Iran. Okay, mobile launchers. We need to talk about that. These are grid independent products. They're a trailer with the launcher and the missile pulled by a cab, like a Peterbilt, a Kenilworth, tractor trailer cab, something like that. Maybe a Ford 650 or 750 pulls it. I don't know. These missile launchers carry their own internal power units, they're called, and batteries to run the hydraulics for erecting the missile and the electronics for the targeting. So again, they might run the generator for several hours and build up the battery. And then when they're actively deploying, they're not running the battery down. A lot of the Iranian more recent missiles, which I expect is what they're using heavily, is running with solid fuel, solid missile fuel. So they don't have to have the complications of the uh, prepping the old liquid fuel and preparing it and temperature things. And I think you had to make it very cold or something. Uh, and those things were power hungry, but these things, the solid fuel is plug and play. They're not really power hungry. So that lets them use the batteries. So that's another problem we got. That's why we keep taking missiles. And that's why I'm afraid Trump might run away. But there is good news, but I didn't get to the good news yet. This was the whole deal with Iran, was banking on these missile cities and the mobile launchers. They put their eggs in these two baskets, okay? Okay, now what would a grid collapse or killing the electrical grid in the whole country, which apparently has already begun, what would it do? It's not going to stop the firing of the missiles themselves from mobile launchers that are using their own power source, as are the underground cities with the missiles. But the grid collapse would create friction in the coordination of these salvos that they're managing to send. Data links, while the IRGC uses dedicated fiber optic networks and satellite links, they have backup power. That have backup power. The loss of the national grid would likely degrade secondary communication channels used for broader logistics and damage assessments. So you'll start handicapping them. You'll start giving them trouble, but you're not terminating their psychotic behavior. You're diminishing their effectiveness to some extent anyway. You're not exactly ending their activities. You're making it worse for them. Targeting updates. If the Iranian intelligence relies on ground-based sensors or data centers that aren't hardened or on backup power, their ability to update targets in real time, like a vehicle, an aircraft, a naval ship, something like that. That's a moving threat. They might be hampered seriously. In other words, they're not going to be able to do what they need to do predict the locations of their mobile threats and the time it's going to take to hit them, and all of that computation and predicting the path of the mobile target and so forth. Um, what they're saying is that Iran's missile capability is limited more by the number of launchers and supply chain disruptions than it is for raw power or electricity, um, that type of thing. We are, America and Israel, hitting power plants. Netanyahu says we've knocked out 70% of their capability of making steel. So we're having trouble. We think we're hitting launchers, these mobile launchers, and we're not. We're hitting decoys. That's an old World War II trick that America used. We made balloons, okay, in World War II that were inflatable by, I think, a foot pump. These were big balloons. And they didn't look like missile launchers. What they looked like is some looked like a tank. So maybe back then it cost $400 or $500 to make a balloon like a tank, right? And the soldiers would sit there for probably 2 or 3 or 4 hours and pump it up with air, and then it would fill up, unless maybe they had an electric unit. Um, and they would make them look like aircraft, and they would make it look like artillery pieces. So they could create the effect of a lot of planes on an airfield, like put 40 or 50 of these balloons on an airstrip out there and stage them in a sequence. And it looks like you got, 40 or 50 fighter planes ready to take off. You could even hang weapons under the wings and stuff. That would drive the enemy crazy with crackpot intel, and it would get the enemy to run a big bombing raid. So you had maybe 10 guys at this air base managing the balloons, if that. Uh, you might have 3 or 4. And then the enemy sends 20 planes in to blow up the air base, right? And these guys just run away and hide somewhere. Uh, or maybe they have foxholes to go in and let them blow the balloons up. And then you just get more balloons and put it back again. And the same with tanks. You could put balloons up, 100 tank balloons, and they think if they go into this area, they're going to be facing 100 tanks plus 50 planes that'll bomb them when there are no planes and there are no tanks. So it's an old trick. It's not anything new. Now, are they building these out of balloons? I don't know. Are they making them out of wood? I don't know. Maybe both. I don't know how they're doing it. Okay. But we're blowing them up and thinking we're hitting their launchers, and we're not. We're hitting decoys. They thought this thing through pretty thoroughly, didn't they? So it's very important to disable their missile launches. And they're disguising them, which is giving us a lot of problems. Fortified missile silos, missile cities, if you will. They have underground generators. They take a commercial grade generator and they put it down where the guys are, so it could be 500 meters under the earth. So you're not bombing that. And they have dedicated fuel reserves. Iran didn't have much trouble getting fuel, so they put a large amount of fuel down there, which you're not going to bomb either, to run the generators. Now, destroying a factory that makes missiles or missile components is generally rather easy to do because it's just a regular factory. And you just bomb it and blow it up like any other factory. Okay. So you can bring an end to their missile career. Eventually they'll run out of missiles, right? Okay. But how long they can go could be scary with these idiots. They might have enough to go for months and months. So the diesel generators produce toxic gas like carbon monoxide in there. Okay, they also make heat, which could give the crews underground a lot of problems because you're not getting proper ventilation and they could get too hot to function. They'd have to go outside. The batteries would not make them hot. It get them a little hot, but not as bad as the generators. The exhaust system vulnerability. For a generator to run, it needs two things. It has to have a source of air, oxygen, for combustion, and it needs an exhaust system to get the vents to vent out the spent gases because they're toxic, and also the heat goes with it. So if they made it easy for an attacker or an enemy or an adversary to locate the vents where they're bringing in fresh air for combustion and taking the spent gases out along with a lot of the heat, they could cap them. In other words, seal them. And that would mean if they run the generators, the gas, the toxic fumes will stay in there. And they could also cut off the oxygen flow to the generator so that the generator would stop working. It wouldn't get the combustion to drive the pistons and stuff. They could also drop modest amounts of combustion, bombs, if you will, like a backpack full of explosives, 40 pounds maybe, throw it down the gas chute where the gases get out, and it gets down to the bottom and it blows up. And that would likely total the shaft. They don't, it would be rather abnormal to encounter a shaft that was built out of, 6-inch thick steel. It's usually going to be, like 1/4 inch aluminum or something, or 1/8 of an inch. Uh, you're not dealing with tremendous pressure. You're just trying to guide air. Um, that's all they're doing. They're not using a big metal water main or something that's an inch or two thick. None of that. Um, so putting them inside of mountains, these facilities, the earth penetrator weapons like GBU-28 can be used to target these specific ventilation points because they lead directly to the lungs of this missile launching facility. Okay. How do they protect the air going in and going out? Well, they use dispersed ventilation instead of one large chimney, so to speak, to get the spent gases out. They use dozens of smaller camouflaged vents that are scattered across a mountain face, hidden inside. They're perhaps inside some civilian looking building on the surface near there or something like that. It's not a real building. It just looks like a real building. It is, but there's nothing going on inside. And it's be difficult to understand what pipe belongs to the generator is difficult. Say you just blow them all up. Blast valves. These are heavyweight steel shutters that snap shut in milliseconds if sensors detect a pressure wave, which an explosive would make. So as soon as the pressure wave is felt, it closes down. They could also have a chemical agent in there that seals the bunker off from the outside world. They have something called scrubbers and rebreathers. High-end bunkers use chemical scrubbers similar to those on a submarine that can remove CO2 and other toxicity from the air for a limited time, allowing the facility to operate in closed lockdown mode without drawing in outside air at all. It could have things that release oxygen as well. It could be tanked oxygen. So they could be running on batteries, shut the generator, and they could run for several hours this way. So they don't get found, let's say. They also have thermal masking. So the exhaust is a hot gas coming out, but they can cool it by mixing it with the ambient air passing in through heat exchangers before it goes up to the surface, making it harder for the infrared detectors to sense the heat. Now, they're not going to get rid of all the heat because the duct itself would get warm, but they're going to get rid of a lot of the heat. And the more you reduce the heat, the harder and harder it is to use these sensors to determine precisely where everything is coming from and attack it. So it does do good. Now, this is to show you how far the Iranians went with this. The carbon monoxide problems. If an exhaust shaft is blocked or damaged by a strike or some other devices, it backs up. However, sensors in these facilities are filled with industrial chemicals or devices that if the sensors levels for CO2 or other toxicity spike, the system automatically shuts down the engines, and then they have batteries they go on. Their most modern bunkers have arrays of batteries. To essentially suffocate or strangle a missile city, what you really need to do is to find and destroy every single intake and exhaust port. And that's hard because they have multiple in each location, spread out and hidden. And you have to do that all at the same time. They have to all go down before they could be repaired. Since these facilities are often put into solid rock or mountains with a lot of rock, like the Zagros Mountains, where they got these places, the plumbing for the air is very deep under layers of reinforced concrete. They know the vulnerabilities. And while a soldier can walk up and sabotage a vent or two, the missile cities were designed like a medieval castle with 21st century technology. The goal isn't to kill everyone inside, but to mission kill the facility by sealing the exits and vents, turning a multi-billion taking a multi-billion-dollar base of Missile City, and turning it into a high-tech, tomb. And they got a number of fake vents, and they got a number of real vents. They have even built fake missile cities. The whole city isn't real. They make it look like there's a missile city in a mountain. And there isn't, but it looks real enough that it gets bombed. And then we think we blew it up, and we did, but we blew nothing of any value up. Wasn't there to start with. So that's why things are going this way. And now that Trump is losing aircraft, it makes me concerned as to if he's going to run away. I don't think any of us really know if he's going to run away or not run away. I don't know. Why would we know? How would we know? Trump himself may not know. Let me check the live stream for questions. So I'm trying to give you an idea of the complexity of the missile city, and I'll go through a review of that in a minute. Let's see what we got going on in the live stream, if anybody has prayer requests or something like that. This new format of theirs, it's just terrible to work with. The Pilgrims hustle poor Mormons. They are a blast. Okay. So let me go and take a break for a minute, and then we're going to come into what are the special forces able to do and not do to get rid of these missile cities, because that's what it's boiled down to. Aircraft don't do it. Okay? I'll be right back. All right. So the absolute biggest vulnerability of the missile city is the vents, not the exits. Why not the exits? The exits are the entrances. Why not that? Because they have tunnels. They're underground in mountains or inside mountains. They have tunnels. Okay? And the tunnel could be a half a mile, a quarter mile. They could have 2 or 3 of them, and they're hidden. So if the missile city gets attacked, they can run out the tunnels. If you did manage to trap them, they had communications where there was an antenna up at the surface with a cable or wires going down so they could communicate. They would get help. Forget the exits. You got to go for the ventilation. Now, there's things that they don't talk about that I'm going to talk about. If you could find the ventilation shafts, you could throw toxic gases in there, like chlorine. You don't pump the fumes in, you throw the chlorine in there, and it ignites and issues a very toxic gas that kills them. This is barbaric. No, it's not. They fire at kindergartens. No, it's not barbaric. They're barbarians. The interesting thing about this is it could be done quietly. Nobody's going to really know what happened. That's the best remedy for this. Do they have sensors that are going to pick up a toxic gas? Maybe. What are they going to do about it? I don't know. I don't think they could do that much about it. What about pumping gasoline down the shafts and then throwing a lit Lucky Strike cigarette after it? Not practical. How do you get that much gasoline out there? Could they throw things down the ventilator shaft that would cause combustion inside the missile city? Like magnesium flares or something. Probably wouldn't do much good. They probably have a chemical fire extinguishing system inside there. Wouldn't do much good. Boots in the ground at the missile city are going to be able to find exits, be they real or not real, ventilation shafts, be they the kind taking in air or exhausting air. And then attack those vulnerable points. That's the way to do it. Do I think the Pentagon could dream up ways to do this very effectively? 100%. Now, how do you get the special forces alive over there? Well, you have to watch for things like landmines. They might have cameras, and then send drones or missiles. But I don't think they would risk missiles or drones because it would hurt their own facility. So that's probably not going to happen. They don't have enough of a fleet of helicopters to fly guys over with helicopters. That wouldn't happen. Jets, no good. So basically, you got them. They're not going to blow drones up on their own missile city. That's stupid. And they're not going to attack with missiles their own missile city. They could cause damage that they don't want. I don't think they're that dumb. Maybe they're not. What about special forces going into the facility and killing them, and then blowing everything up with a delayed timer and leaving? No. No good. Why? You have a long path from the outside when you get into an entrance of walking into where the missiles and the launchers and all the good equipment are kept, right? So during that, they could have bombs placed in the ceiling, in the floor, in the wall that you won't see, with cameras, and some private sits there or a corporal watching with night opticals or whatever he needs. The American soldiers coming through, and he sees they get near one of the explosives, he just pushes a button and they get blown up. Now, it wouldn't be a heavy explosive that collapses the place. It would be more of a light explosive with lots of ball bearings that were shrapnel. So it would blow up and blast them with shrapnel. If they had bulletproof vests, that would be nice. It would protect their upper torso, but their faces, their arms, their legs, everything else would get destroyed. They would be dead. They could do the same thing with toxic gas, but then the soldiers could carry a gas mask and a hazmat suit. So likely they wouldn't bother with gas, which could infect them. Flooding the tunnels, unlikely. Fire in the tunnels, probably not. Could come back and burn the missile city. Don't think they want that. The things they would want is a hidden machine gun nest would be perfect, where two guys come there with a heavy machine gun on a tripod, and they got 4,000 or 5,000 rounds of ammunition, and the Americans come within sight and they just mind you, you're talking about a path that's maybe 8 feet or 10 feet wide, and you start blasting with a machine gun, you're going to have a pretty high casualty rate. And it's really treacherous to send special forces in there. Now, what about sending a robot in there? Well, that's something the Iranians would be unexpecting, Not expecting. Shooting the robot probably wouldn't do a lot of good. Explosive would do a lot of good. Uh, what would the robot do? Well, basically surveillance, and then they follow the robot. Could they fly micro drones in? These are little drones like this that are very quiet. Fly it in the tunnel with the camera on and seeing what's going. Yeah. But again, you don't know. There could be a hidden machine gun nest. These guys could be hiding behind a false wall or a barrier or a false piece of equipment or something, and they're sitting there with thousands of rounds of ammo and a high-speed heavy machine gun. Like they might use a 50 cal, uh, and that's going to cut through the bulletproof vests that normally are used. 30 caliber is normal for anti-personnel. Can the special forces find a way to do this? To enter? Yeah, they could. You could use a vehicle in there because they use vehicles in there, so they could have a light vehicle. But there's a number of hazards. You got to worry about being ambushed with explosives and machine guns. And that's a problem. And I don't know how they would really overcome that other than to send robots in. The idea is to send the robot all the way in as close as you can get it and have the robot dragging behind it 100 pounds of explosives and then boom, or attaching a large amount of explosives to the robot. Now comes the doors to the missile city. Now, this is the launch doors. The missile city has to open up to fire the missiles. They can't fire it through the mountain. So you could either, this is your door. You could either open it like this, or, like this, or like this, right? Or you could slide it. There's not much else. What are your other options? Well, there are they. So could the soldiers leave cameras there, sensors and stuff like that? Yeah, yeah, they could. Then the cameras would, they might have to plant 10 or 15 cameras around the place, but the cameras would show them where the missile city doors are. And then when they know where that is, then they probably wouldn't need to do more than 1 or 2,000 pound bombs, precision hits on the doors. And I don't think they could possibly recover those doors very quickly. Now, are the doors made out of 4 or 5 feet of steel? I doubt it because the thing would be so heavy. You're worried about electrical drain. I doubt that. I think it's probably 2 or 3 inches or something like that. Their idea is concealment. With that, probably not fortification. If it is fortification, that's not going to do much. But I think, some kind of doors that weigh 20 tons or 40 tons or something like that is just the size of the electric motor. Becomes a whole other animal, and I don't think they want that. Let me see if I could get any information on those doors. They might not know if these things are built out of 6-foot steel or I don't know. Let's see if we could find any intel on this. No, they say they are very thick, like blast doors. And the way they do it is they open the door, shoot the missiles, and then close it right away. Okay, and they're pretty tough to get through, so it may not be such a weak point. I'm seeing what other intel they have on these. Hold on. Well, they are fortified. They only open for a few seconds, so they might be 30 seconds or something. What I was hearing is the Green Berets could put sensors around there. When the doors open, you're going to have a vibration sensor. Probably is it. The thing's going to cause vibration in the earth because it's a big, heavy door and it's opening. I don't think it's a 3-foot opening. I think it's probably more like 8, 10 foot. When the thing is open, the missile city is super vulnerable. Okay, what does super vulnerable mean? To put it into baby talk, sort of, if you threw a couple of hand grenades in the opening, you might end the missile city. You'd end the people down there that were walking around anyway. But that wouldn't be a suitable explosive. You'd have to, they would have to use sensors or actually have special forces there and call in an airstrike. And you'd have to have planes in the air that could hit the afterburners at, let's say, 1,200 miles an hour and get there in seconds and then fire a volley of missiles or drop bombs in the opening. That's not feasible. So if you had Green Berets and Navy SEALs there, what could they get in there? They would be able to get some kind of explosives in there, I imagine. Mortars could go up like this, up and then down. Um, they're portable enough they could carry some mortars and put mortar shells in there. So you're going to get secondary explosions. When you put your modest explosives in an open, when the launch door opens, you're right in where the missiles are, where the guys are, everything. Okay. Now the guys probably aren't in that room. They probably have to go behind a blast door, because when you fire up the missile, there's going to be all kinds of flames coming out of the back and gases. So they have to probably work it from behind a blast door. Or they get burned up, you know. But when you put explosives in there in that area, there's going to be other missiles. Now, if you could get it before they get the missile launched, now you're cooking with gas. Now you're going to blow the missile up and get a great secondary explosion. Take out the whole site, probably. But they complicated it by having multiple doors. So if you take one door out, they might be able to work with 2 or 3 other doors. And they've also put dummy doors in. So you take the dummy door out and it doesn't go anywhere. And they probably make the dummy doors easier to find. Do you see the difficulty that we have here? No, I'm myself not looking forward to having another 2 or 3 months of this until Iran runs out of missiles. Now, with boots on the ground, they're going to run out of missiles, because they're not going to be able to transport missiles into these sites, because there's going to be too much surveillance. And all the above ground factories, regular factories that make bullets, missiles, warheads, bombs, drones, they don't set those deep inside mountains. That's not a feasible thing, okay? There's trucks going in and out all the time. You've got thousands of workers coming for shifts and going home, and it doesn't work. So they're just built as a factory, okay? So they're being attacked like crazy too. One of the things we wanted to make sure is that the Iranians don't have any continuing production of missiles, okay? And I think we did a pretty decent job of that. So, bottom line is this. Do I think the Mossad and the CIA and the Pentagon are going to be able to work out a way to take care of this? I would give it a 99% chance. There's a 1% that they can't do it, but I don't think so. I would even go 100%. Everything has a vulnerability. Again, you talk to people in construction, and people say, how can I make my house secure so crooks can't get into it? An honest contractor is going to tell you the only way you're going to stop crooks from getting into your house is if you can't get in. So when you leave your house, there's no getting back in again. Then you can't get in and they can't get in. That's the only way. Okay. So the only way they could stop people from attacking this missile city is if they couldn't get in themselves. Do you understand? Okay, that's a fact. If they can go in and out, if they can move supplies in and out, which they can, then it is vulnerable. And do I think they'll find it 100%? They may have already found it. And that's why Trump brought the special forces over here, and he also brought 82nd Airborne. I don't think this is the type of job for Rangers per se, although they are special forces. That's the lower level of special forces. I think this is more of a job for recon Marines, Navy SEALs, Delta, Green Berets, these type of people. And I don't think the Air Force special forces are really going to be deployed in this, because they're going to be deployed in saving pilots, not this. Um, Naval intelligence will be involved heavy, and they're pretty smart people. They're not idiots. You know, the higher IQ people of the military wind up in these intelligence units. Yeah, they'll figure it out. It might be a chemical agent, it might be a gas, it might be an explosive. Um, it might be they're just going to plant a lot of sensors and cameras around and watch what happens, and then make a plan when they see it. They get it on a sensor, and they get it on an image, and they know what happens, and then they could, you know. And we're suffering. And Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, UAE, Oman, Jordan, Saudi Arabia are suffering. And the American bases are suffering. And since they've got the Strait of Hormuz closed, the whole world is suffering with the oil prices, and they're scared that they're going to get up way too high. Let's see what the gasoline prices are in America. Let's try that. Average gasoline prices in America today. Regular $4.09 is the national average for yesterday, the 3rd of April. It's early in the morning in America now, so the mid grade is 460, premium is 497, so that's basically $5, right? So if you want to have high test, you're in at $5 a gallon now. That's getting dangerous. It's not dangerous, but it's approaching. And a diesel 550. And there's a lot of people running diesel, so diesel's over $5. I think at $7 to $8, you're going to start hitting panic. Let me explain why. Okay, I'll open a calculator. All right, it's not uncommon for somebody to use 2 gallons of gasoline each way to go to work. That's nothing, especially in the summer running the AC. Okay, so that means to go to work, they're at $14. To come home, they're at $14. So they're at $28 a day. $28 times 5 is $140 a week, times 4.3 for the month. They're paying $600 a month for gasoline. Now that's after tax dollars. After your income tax is taxed out. So you're talking for somebody making $60,000-$70,000 a year, that's going to affect them. Is it going to put them out of business? No. Is it going to make them drive their car less and less? Yes. Carpooling and other things like that. But let's say gas gets nuts and you're paying $10 a gallon, okay? So let's run the numbers at $10 and take a look at what you're dealing with, okay? So you got $40 a day for gas, 2 gallons each way. So you got $40 times 5 For the week, you got 200 times 4.3. You're at $860, and let's round it off to $1,000 because that extra $140 is conservatively talking about your other gasoline needs. Kid drop off, pick up, supermarket
There's an
drop.
angle grinder running out there.
I don't know. Yeah. Supermarket pick up and drop off, or going to the supermarkets, going to the post office, going to the bank, going to the shoe store, going to the doctor, going to the drugstore, going shopping someplace. Okay, so now you're hitting people with $1,000 a month in gas. Okay, let's take a look at a person's budget that makes out okay, not somebody living on a $2,000 a month pension. They just can't cut it. The only time they're going to drive the car is if they got to go to the doctor, the pharmacy, or buy food or something. They're going to do as little as they can. Okay, but let's say you're, let me think, run something. Let's say somebody's making $78,000 a year. That's about $1,500 a week. So let's say we got 1,500 a week times 4.3. That's $6,450 a month. And let's say they're losing in taxes. Let's just say $1,000, okay? So they're at $5,450. And that's being generous because most people have state and federal tax, but let's say they're just losing $1,000. It could be $1,200 or $1,400, but let's say $1,000. So they're a little over $5,000 a month after tax income. Now they got to buy food. They got to pay electric. They got to pay water. They got to make car payments, rent or mortgage payments, internet, this, that, and the other thing. And now on top of that, healthcare insurance, and on top of that, you got $1,000 in gasoline, plus your car repairs, your license fees, your car insurance. People aren't making it, okay? When you get up to $100,000 a year, now your taxes are going to get pretty high, and they might get by. Now, somebody that's making let's call it a lower level executive salary is going to be at about $140,000 a year. Okay, that's what I pick up in America. Now you got to know how to do stuff to get $140,000 a year. They're not going to pay it to you just because you're a good gal or a good guy. You got $140,000. So let's break it down and divide it by 12. So you're getting 11,666. You're probably losing. You're probably down to $9,000 after taxes. So if you lose $1,000 on gasoline, yeah, you're okay. You're recovered. You're not happy about it, but you're fine. See what I'm saying? They're okay with it. But there's a lot of people that, would you like fries with that? There's people that are not making more than $3,000 or $4,000 a month. Okay? And this is going to kill them. Because you can buy an 8 or 9-year-old car relatively cheaply and keep it running. And, what do they do with it? Now, I'm not talking about gas going to $14, $15. That's going to cripple everybody. Except, somebody making $400,000 a year or something like that. Look, you got a lot of people they have jobs where they're making $75 to $150,000 a year, and they live, 12, 15 miles from where they work, or 30 miles even. People run 20, 30, so they could be burning 6 gallons a day at $12. You're talking, maybe 15. Guys, it's not just that. It's not just that. You're going to pay more for eggs, for bread, for everything in that supermarket. You're going to pay more because everything moves with gas. If you're talking about food flown in, of course, they want fresh exotic food or something. You're talking, aside from amazingly high prices of food to start with, like that, aviation fuel, which doubled in price already. That's high. So ships burn diesel. Okay, trains, choo choo, chugga 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 chugga, they burn diesel. Okay, then you got trucks burn diesel, cars burn gas, motorcycles burn gas. Everything, you could stop buying a lot of things. Most people can, and they will, and they probably already have. No more furniture, no more carpeting, right? No going to the movies, no going to live shows, no going to the amusement and theme parks. It's easy to get rid of that, right? You just stop. Okay? No going to ball games. You just stop. You watch it on TV or something, right? What can't they stop? Food. They could stop clothes to a point. They could stop the dry cleaning to a point. Some people have to dry clean so they can go to work. They could cut down the amount of air conditioning they use. They could cut down the amount of heat they use in the house to a point. But they're getting hit. Boom, 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 boom. Every direction they're getting hit. Okay? They're getting hit from every direction with greater cost. Okay? And you'll see the internet go up. What do they call it? Prime, Netflix, that'll go up. Cell phone will go up. All this will go up. Your water bill will get higher. Everything, your heating bill will get higher. Your LNG gas is going to cost more. So in America, you're using LNG gas to heat up that water tank you have in your house. So when you take a shower, you got hot water, and it's being heated by LNG gas. Everything. So is that what Trump wants? No. But he's got it, but he doesn't want it, but he has it. Europe is going to suffer. They're already paying $7, $9 a gallon in most of Europe. They're used to that. They're going to be suffering. It's bad. Well, we're feeling it in Israel, of course. We got food insecurity with a lot of people here. Price of food is way the heck too high. Way, way, way too high. what could Trump do to stop this? Well, destroying the grid in Iran is going to make the country not habitable. And that matches the prophecy in the Bible. That's Jeremiah 49, verse 34 to the end of the chapter. Elam is Iraq and Iran, and since it also would include Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, UAE, and Oman. Not Jordan, which is Moab and Ammon. Not Lebanon, which is, Lebanon. Not Saudi Arabia, which is Arabia. Not Yemen, which is Edom, but it covers them, and they're going to be busted out so much they're going to be scattered to all the nations among the world because they hate us so much. They hate God. That's why. So anyway, so that's where everybody's headed right now, and we'll have to see how the special forces do. And they're running around all over Iran now. Okay, have been for days, maybe weeks, probably weeks. But he's loading them up, and he's going to be bringing more in. Maybe 82nd Airborne is being put in Saudi Arabia because he's going to do a bum's rush on Yemen and take down the Houthis if they act up. I don't know. I don't know how many 82nd Airborne he's got, but 8 or 10,000 with armor and air support could probably do a good job. I don't know. I don't think that's high on his priority list because the Houthis are basically rather low key. They are attacking Israel, but Trump's not that worried about Israel. So he's going to deploy them to go to the missile cities. Now, how does he make sure they don't get killed approaching the missile cities? Well, that's what helicopters and A-10 Warthog things do, is protect the ground troops. 2 helicopters and 1 A-10 got shot down. F-15s could do something kind of like that too, and it got shot down. So what are they going to do? F-35s are not set up for this. How do they deal with this? They're going to take losses. Is Trump going to take losses? I don't know. I don't know. What if Trump just pulls out and then leaves us there to continue bombing Iran? We can't stop the missile cities. We could destroy the country. But it says Iran gets destroyed by her enemies, plural, in the plural. So we're not going to be just by ourselves. Other people will be with us. I think these 40 or so nations that are trying to negotiate or make some sort of deal with Iran are going to find out what the deal is going to be, is more or less get all the sanctions, including the snapback UN sanctions, off of Iran. Okay. We want to control the Persian Gulf and charge tolls. We want guarantees we're going to stay in power and not get prosecuted, and nobody's going to get rid of us, and we want war reparations. And it's impossible for Europe to get that. The UN, with the veto power of America, it'll get vetoed. So that's not going to happen. If they tried something like they're just not going to do it. It's just not going to happen. Iran figures eventually by shooting missiles enough, they're going to get what they want. But they're idiots. They didn't bank on the fact that there's probably between 800 billion to $1 trillion, $1,000 billion of damage in Iran. It may be higher. It may be higher than that. Just getting the rubbish away, knocking the destroyed buildings down, and getting ready to rebuild them, not rebuild them, is probably at least a year or two. Tens of thousands of bombs went. The damage is insane. Okay? There's not much left to disable the country. You deep destroy the electrical grid. You don't just superficially do it. And there's no electricity, and people are going to start having to leave Iran. So the IRGC and the mullahs are going to stay there when a lot of the people leave. Why would they do that? Don't know. Don't know if they will. It's a rough thing, guys. And we're sitting here getting pounded. So let's do some prayer. My Heavenly Father, Jehovah, I pray that the missile and drone attacks on Israel goes away and it stops as soon as possible. And I pray the damage in Israel and the loss of life in Israel is minimal or non-existent. I pray for non-existent. And I submit this to you, my Heavenly Father, B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach. And you can agree with that if you're a believer. Okay? I think we should get a prayer up for ourselves. My Heavenly Father, Jehovah, I pray for me and my wife and all the true believers in their households to have strength, stamina, and endurance from you, to have your healing and recuperative power inside of us. And I pray that us and our animals and pets be safe and secure and happy, healthy, and whole. And I pray for the peace of Jerusalem. And I pray for the destruction of the Iranian lunatics and the Houthis in Yemen and the Hamas in Gaza and the Hezbollah in Lebanon and the Iran-backed militias in Syria and Iraq. I pray they would all be defunct, not able to bother anybody anymore. They would be dismantled, devastated, destroyed, whatever it is. They can't bother people anymore. And I pray that if any of us need to find a good job, we get that good job, and that we have more money than we need. We have excess. And I pray if any of us need clients or customers for our businesses, we get those too freely. I pray to be able to do better videos. I pray for all of us to understand the Bible better. And I pray for us to have your peace and your joy and your calm and your rest, and to remember that all things work to good for those who love the Lord. B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach, and you believers can agree with that, even if it's a video. and I'll do some spiritual warfare, which I do online every day, and I do it in the evening myself again. So I hope it's working. I think it is. My Heavenly Father, Jehovah, I loose from off of me and my wife and all the true believers in our households and everything we own, possess, control, or set our hand to, our animals and pets, etc. Loose off of all of us any witchcraft or sorcery. It's all gone forever, of no value, no effect, and shall never return. B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach. And you can agree with that too. And I also pray, my Heavenly Father Jehovah, that none of us receive any thoughts, ideas, notions, feelings, communications, dreams or visions or insights coming from any unclean spirit or people that serve unclean spirits for the next 10 years continuously. I submit this to you, my Heavenly Father, B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach, and you can agree with that also. B'Shem Yeshua HaMashiach. Do all things in the name of Yeshua the Messiah. And I thank you for offerings, which keeps me going. And mommy dog had a rough time last night. She was crying from all the bombs going up in the air. And we hear them all the way to Haifa and all the way up. We don't hear them at Lebanon, no. We hear them, depending on the direction, at least 10 or 15 miles. The takedown missiles going off, Haifa's pretty far. It's 45 minutes by car, but we hear the explosions and then we look it up and it tells us it was happening in Haifa. So that's pretty, it's muffled. It's in the background. Now it's muffled for us humans, but the dogs got hearing, what's the hearing 20, 30, 40 times better. It's not muffled for them. That's why she gets upset and cries. She doesn't know what it is, but she knows that it's not a good thing. And when we leave them outside, you got to bring them in when you hear the sirens going. And we often get sirens with no takedowns. In other words, they give us a siren to go into the shelters in case they do the interception over our community. But sometimes nothing. So, it has been quiet since, I know we had a lot of action just before midnight last night. But now, I don't know what I slept through during the night. I have no idea. My wife slept through something. We don't know what we slept through. We don't know. If anything, I don't know. But I was up at about 4:30 in the morning. I didn't hear anything, and I went back to sleep. And I got up before 6, and I didn't hear anything. It's been a while now, and we're almost at 11 o'clock, I think, and you haven't heard any sirens or anything like that, so I don't know. It could be hitting other parts of Israel that I wouldn't hear it in. I normally wouldn't hear Jerusalem or Tel Aviv or Haifa. I hear, or the South. I wouldn't hear it. So, I send my Shabbat Shalom to all those who love Yeshua HaMashiach, and I hope you got something out of this. And I'm out.